The quiet hum of the air conditioning was the loudest sound in the sterile interrogation room, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in the mind of the young woman seated across from Detective Miller. Her name was Chloe, and at 17, she possessed a chillingly calm demeanor, a mask she had perfected over weeks, perhaps months of meticulous planning. She truly believed she had orchestrated the perfect crime, a masterpiece of deception designed to unravel without a trace back to her. But as the detective's gaze, both weary and sharp, met hers, a tremor, almost imperceptible, ran through her carefully constructed facade. The story, as it slowly unfolded, was a labyrinth of teenage angst, a desperate yearning for freedom, and a shocking revelation that would leave even seasoned investigators stunned. It began, as many such tales do, with a sense of stifled existence. Chloe lived in a picturesque suburban home, outwardly idyllic, yet internally she felt trapped. Her parents, strict and overbearing in her eyes, had mapped out her entire future: an elite university, a career in law, a life preordained. Every aspect of her young life felt controlled, from her choice of friends to her extracurricular activities. The pressure was immense, a constant weight on her shoulders, pushing her further and further towards a breaking point. She craved autonomy, a life where her decisions were her own, where she could breathe freely. But how does a 17-year-old break free from such a rigid structure without shattering everything? That was the question that gnawed at her day and night. Her escape fantasies soon evolved into something more concrete, something darker. She began to research, spending countless hours late into the night, hunched over her laptop, the screen illuminating her determined face. She delved into true crime forums, poring over stories of unsolved mysteries, learning about alibis, forensics, and the intricacies of criminal investigations. It was a macabre education, fueled by a potent cocktail of desperation and a burgeoning sense of intellectual superiority. She believed she could outsmart the system, that her youthful innocence would serve as the ultimate camouflage. No one would ever suspect the quiet, studious Chloe of such an audacious act. The target of her elaborate scheme wasn't a person, not directly, but rather the very foundation of her constrained life: her parents' financial security. She reasoned that if their wealth disappeared, they would be forced to relocate, to start anew, and in that upheaval, she would find her opportunity for independence. It was a twisted logic, born of youthful desperation and a profound misunderstanding of consequence. She envisioned a future where she would be free, perhaps living with her distant aunt, far away from the suffocating grip of her parents' expectations. The plan in her mind was foolproof. The first step involved careful observation. She studied her parents' daily routines, noting their habits, their vulnerabilities. Her father, a workaholic, often left important documents on his home office desk. Her mother, meticulously organized, kept a spare set of keys to everything in a small, hidden box in her dresser. Chloe cataloged these details, building a mental blueprint of their lives, identifying the weak points in their security. She learned about their investments, their bank accounts, the safe they kept hidden behind a painting in the study. She was a silent observer, a shadow moving through their lives, gathering intelligence for her impending operation. Then came the technological aspect. Chloe was proficient with computers, a skill she had honed through countless hours spent online, not on social media like her peers, but on forums discussing encryption, anonymous browsing, and digital forensics. She learned about cryptocurrency, about dark web marketplaces, about the untraceable nature of certain online transactions. Her plan was to orchestrate a digital theft, making it appear as if an external hacker had breached their systems, siphoning off their substantial savings without leaving a single tangible clue. She meticulously crafted fake email accounts, set up VPNs, and studied the intricacies of phishing schemes. The sheer complexity of her digital plot was astonishing for someone her age. She chose a specific night, a Friday, when her parents would be out at their weekly bridge club. This provided a crucial window of several hours, ample time to execute the physical aspects of her plan. She would need access to their home computer, to their banking details, to the information that would allow her to initiate the digital heist. She had already acquired the necessary tools: a USB drive loaded with malware, a small device capable of capturing keystrokes, and a burner phone for untraceable communication, though she planned to use it sparingly, only for critical moments. As the clock ticked towards the chosen night, Chloe felt a strange mix of exhilaration and trepidation. Her heart pounded in her chest, a drumbeat against her ribs, but her external composure remained unwavering. She ate dinner with her parents, feigning interest in their day, nodding politely, all the while her mind was a whirlwind of calculations and contingencies. She even offered to help her mother with the dishes, a rare gesture that raised no suspicion, but rather a flicker of pride in her mother's eyes. It was all part of the act, the elaborate charade she had so carefully constructed. When her parents finally left, the sound of their car fading into the distance, Chloe took a deep breath. The house felt eerily silent, the air thick with anticipation. She moved with a purpose, a practiced efficiency that belied her youth. First, she disabled the home security cameras, a task she had practiced repeatedly, learning the system's vulnerabilities. Then she headed to her father's study. She located the hidden safe, remembering the combination he had once mentioned in passing, dismissing it as irrelevant information at the time. Inside, she found not only financial documents, but also a small, unassuming black book. Curiosity, a dangerous companion in such moments, prompted her to open it. She found within the pages of that book was not what she expected. It wasn't financial ledgers or confidential business dealings. Instead, it was a journal, handwritten entries chronicling her father's deepest anxieties, his fears for her future, his struggles with her mother, and most surprisingly, his profound love for Chloe. He wrote about his hopes for her, his worries that he was pushing her too hard, his desire for her to be happy, even if it meant diverging from his meticulously planned path. He questioned his own parenting choices, expressing guilt and a desperate yearning to connect with her. He even mentioned feeling a growing distance between them, a distance he attributed to his own shortcomings, not hers. Chloe read, her initial sense of triumph slowly giving way to a chilling realization. This wasn't the distant, unfeeling patriarch she had envisioned. This was a man wrestling with the complexities of fatherhood, a man who, beneath his rigid exterior, harbored a deep well of affection and concern for her well-being. The words on the page contradicted everything she had believed about him, everything that had fueled her resentment and driven her to this precipice. Her hands trembled, not from fear of discovery, but from the sudden, profound shift in her understanding. As she read further, a specific entry caught her eye. It was dated just a few days prior, and it spoke of a secret, a burden her father had been carrying for years, a truth he felt he couldn't reveal to anyone, especially not to her. He hinted at a past mistake, a transgression that had haunted him, shaping his conservative worldview and his desire for control over Chloe's life. He believed that by shielding her, by guiding her down a safe, predictable path, he was atoning for his own past errors. The entry ended with a cryptic reference to a hidden document, something that would explain everything, should he ever lose the courage to tell her himself. The digital heist, which moments before had seemed so vital, now felt trivial, insignificant. A new, far more compelling mystery had presented itself. Chloe's carefully constructed world, based on her perceptions of her parents, was crumbling around her. She closed the journal, her mind racing, processing this unexpected turn of events. The thrill of the perfect crime had vanished, replaced by a consuming need to uncover the truth about her father's past. She meticulously returned the journal to the safe, her movements now devoid of their earlier precision, tinged instead with a hesitant curiosity. She then, almost on autopilot, proceeded with a modified version of her original plan. She still accessed her parents' financial accounts, but instead of initiating the transfers, she merely observed, taking screenshots, gathering information. She wasn't sure why she was doing it, perhaps out of habit, or perhaps a lingering need for a backup plan, a way to reclaim control if this new path proved to be a dead end. She realized with a jolt that she had left no digital traces, no breadcrumbs that would lead back to her. Even if she had decided to go through with the theft, her anonymity would have been preserved. The thought, however, brought her no satisfaction. When her parents returned, Chloe was already in her room, feigning sleep, her heart still pounding with the weight of the new information. The next few days were a blur of internal turmoil. She watched her father with new eyes, searching for clues, for hints of the secret he carried. Every interaction felt charged, every word laden with unspoken meaning. She saw the lines of worry etched around his eyes, the slight slump of his shoulders, the way he sometimes stared off into the distance, lost in thought. He wasn't just a strict parent. He was a man burdened by his past, a man trying to protect his daughter in the only way he knew how. The cryptic reference in the journal continued to haunt her. A hidden document, something that would explain everything. Where could it be? She began a subtle search, a covert operation within her own home, looking for anything out of place, anything that seemed to hold a deeper meaning. She checked old photo albums, dusty boxes in the attic, the forgotten corners of her father's study. She was no longer seeking escape, she was seeking understanding. Weeks passed and Chloe's internal struggle intensified. The weight of her secret, combined with the unearthed truth about her father, was becoming unbearable. She considered confronting him, but fear held her back. What if the truth was too devastating? What if it shattered their already fragile family dynamic beyond repair? She continued to play the role of the dutiful daughter, but beneath the surface, a torrent of emotions raged. Then came the day the police arrived. It wasn't about the digital reconnaissance she had performed. It wasn't about any perceived theft. It was about something far more shocking, something that linked directly to the hidden truth her father had hinted at. Detective Miller, the same man now sitting across from her in the interrogation room, was leading the investigation. The initial questioning was routine, focused on a series of unsettling events that had recently transpired in their affluent neighborhood. Small acts of vandalism, unusual disturbances, things that had been dismissed as teenage pranks. But one incident, a break-in at a neighbor's house where nothing was stolen but significant emotional distress was caused, had escalated the situation. The police had found a single, crucial piece of evidence at the scene. A distinctive, hand-carved wooden bird. And Chloe knew, with a sickening lurch in her stomach, exactly where that bird had come from. It was a gift given to her by her father years ago, a replica of a bird he had carved as a child. He had kept it on his bedside table, a sentimental token of his past. The fact that it was found at the scene of the crime meant only one thing: her father was somehow involved. The perfect crime she had almost committed now seemed like a distant, childish fantasy compared to the real-life nightmare unfolding around her. As Detective Miller slowly, methodically presented the evidence, Chloe's calm facade finally cracked. The revelation of the bird, the symbol of her father's past, shattered her composure. She began to recount her own story, not of the planned digital heist, but of her discovery of the journal, of the cryptic entries of her search for the hidden truth. She spoke of her father's anxieties, his desire to protect her, his haunted past. She spoke not to confess to a crime, but to unravel a deeper mystery, a mystery that now seemed to ensnare her father. Detective Miller listened intently, his expression unreadable. He had seen countless families shattered by secrets, by unspoken burdens. He had witnessed the devastating consequences of past mistakes coming back to haunt the present. Chloe's story, while circuitous and steeped in adolescent angst, resonated with a chilling authenticity. He recognized the desperation in her voice, the genuine fear for her father, even as she inadvertently implicated him. As Chloe spoke, her voice thick with emotion, she recalled a specific detail from the journal, an almost throwaway line about an old, forgotten shoebox in the attic, containing old memories and regrets. She had dismissed it during her earlier search, focusing on more obvious hiding places. But now, with the weight of the wooden bird connecting her father to the recent incidents, the shoebox suddenly seemed significant, a potential key to unlocking the truth. She shared this detail with Detective Miller, a desperate plea for him to look deeper, to understand her father's complexity. The detective, sensing a breakthrough, immediately dispatched a team to search the house, specifically the attic, for this shoebox. Chloe, exhausted and emotionally drained, could only wait, her future and her father's hanging in the balance. The search team found the shoebox. Inside, beneath layers of faded photographs and old report cards, was not just one document, but a collection of letters, dated years ago, detailing a tragic accident. An accident her father had been involved in as a teenager, an accident that had resulted in the death of a young boy, a boy who was the younger brother of the family whose house had recently been vandalized. The letters revealed a story of youthful recklessness, a hit-and-run that had been covered up by his wealthy family, a secret that had festered within him for decades. The boy's family had never received justice, and her father, consumed by guilt, had lived a life haunted by his past actions. The strictness, the overprotective nature, the meticulous planning of Chloe's future, it was all an elaborate attempt to control a world he felt he had once catastrophically lost control of. The recent incidents, the vandalism, the break-in, the leaving of the wooden bird, it wasn't her father acting out. It was the other way around. The victim's older brother, now an adult, had recently discovered the truth about his brother's death, about the cover-up. He had spent years seeking answers, and through his own relentless investigation, he had finally pieced together the puzzle, identifying Chloe's father as the driver responsible. The wooden bird, a sentimental object from her father's past, was found at the scene not as a clue left by him, but as a deliberate message from the victim's brother. It was a taunt, a symbol of their shared history, a stark reminder of the long unaddressed injustice. The perfect crime her father had committed, the one that had been successfully covered up for decades, was now unraveling not by her hand, but by the relentless pursuit of truth by another. Chloe sat in the interrogation room, the information swirling around her. Her father wasn't the perpetrator of the recent incidents. He was the intended target, the focus of a victim's family finally seeking retribution. The weight of her own misguided plan, her naive attempt to free herself, now felt insignificant, almost absurd in the face of this profound, decades-old tragedy. Her perfect crime was merely a blip, a fleeting shadow against the backdrop of a far more sinister and enduring secret. Detective Miller, having reviewed the contents of the shoebox, returned to the interrogation room, his expression now one of profound sadness. He explained the truth to Chloe carefully, empathetically. He understood her initial suspicions, her fear, her confusion. He saw the layers of misunderstanding that had led her to her own elaborate, albeit ultimately harmless, scheme. The shocking truth wasn't that Chloe had planned the perfect crime. It was that the perfect crime had already been committed decades ago by her own father, and the police had finally found the shocking truth, not through her investigation, but through the determined actions of a grieving brother seeking justice. Chloe's journey to uncover her own freedom had inadvertently brought to light a far greater, far more devastating secret, a secret that had shaped her entire life without her ever knowing. The consequences for her father would be severe. The statute of limitations for a hit-and-run might have passed, but the moral and legal implications of the cover-up and the ongoing harassment he faced were undeniable. His carefully constructed life, built on a foundation of secrecy and guilt, was about to crumble. And Chloe, the girl who thought she could outsmart the system, found herself caught in the emotional fallout, a witness to the unraveling of her family's hidden past. She was not charged with anything. Her actions, while bordering on illicit, had been an act of desperation, a misguided attempt at control, and ultimately, an unforeseen catalyst for truth. Her digital reconnaissance, her near heist, all of it faded into the background as the true gravity of her father's past came to light. The police, having confirmed the details of the accident and the subsequent cover-up, turned their attention to the victim's brother, not as a suspect in the recent incidents, but as a witness, a victim of a decades-old injustice. They recognized the pain that had driven him, even if his methods had been outside the law. Chloe left the interrogation room a different person. The anger, the resentment, the feeling of being trapped, it was all still there, but now it was tinged with a profound sadness and a complex understanding of her father. He was not just a villain in her teenage drama. He was a flawed human being, tormented by a past he couldn't escape, desperately trying to protect his family from the fallout of his youthful mistakes. The perfect crime she had envisioned was shattered, replaced by the devastating reality of a different, far older transgression. The quiet hum of the air conditioning still filled the room, but for Chloe, the silence was no longer sterile. It was heavy with the weight of revelations, the echoes of a hidden past, and the shocking truth that had finally, irrevocably, come to light. The journey towards her own freedom had begun, not with an escape, but with an uncomfortable, painful confrontation with the truth, a truth that had been lurking beneath the surface of her seemingly perfect suburban life all along. She walked out of the police station, not towards the independence she had so desperately craved, but towards a future inextricably linked to the complexities and consequences of her family's long-buried secrets. Her carefully crafted plan for a perfect crime had ultimately led her to a truth far more impactful and far more terrifying than she could have ever imagined. The world, which she had viewed in such black and white terms, now shimmered with shades of gray, a testament to the intricate and often painful tapestry of human lives and the secrets they carry.